Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MFC Approach podcast. I am super excited and happy to have a really special guest on the show today. As always, I feel like that's always what I say every time a guest is on the show, but I genuinely mean that every single time. I don't just invite anybody on the show, and I'm really excited to have the guest on today that we do. So our guest today is Adam Poehlmann. Adam and I became acquainted through a mentorship that we're both a part of with Mike Viconti and Jordan Syatt. So if you haven't heard of them, you should look them up as well. But for sure, look up Adam. We'll post all of his Instagram information and other information that he wants posted for you guys to check out. But I'm super grateful to have Adam here today. Adam is a husband, a father to a 6-month-old little girl. And I just feel like in so many ways, Adam, like that in and of itself is one of the biggest reasons why I'm so excited to have you on the show today, is because we have that we have that similarity. And then also I know a lot of the listeners are going to have that in common with us as well. And so I hope that we can, take the experience that we've had with being a husband, a father, as well as, living a healthy lifestyle and just provide a lot of really good information for all the listeners today. So Adam, thank you so much for being here, man. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an honor, Luke. It's an honor. I'm happy to dive in and share more about being a husband, father, what life is like, trying to balance fitness and all those things. I'm not an expert. Like you said, I got a 6-month-old. So I'm not where you are yet, but I would like to think I know more than I did 6 months ago. So
I believe that. Without a doubt, you know more than you did 6 months ago. I think the moment that baby comes into the world, it's like your life has changed and you just instantly know more already. Like, I don't know how it happens, but
yep.
Anyways, man, yeah, thank you so much for being here. And guys, Adam, when it comes to being a fitness coach and a fitness professional or health professional, Adam has been in the industry since 2014, right, Adam?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 2014, long time.
So, he had a lot of knowledge and experience there. And again, just really excited to kind of pull from that and provide our listeners with just a ton of valuable information today. So real quick, Adam, the first thing I kind of want to address, and I didn't really give you any hint that I wanted to talk about this, but I just noticed in your Instagram bio, the first line says Christian, husband, father.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if you would mind just kind of diving into that just a little bit for me, man, and just kind of breaking that down for us. Was it intentional the way you put those in order? And if so, why? If not, no big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that hasn't always been there. I can share more about how I came to faith, but I've been a Christian most of my life. Awesome. But the bio hasn't always been there. The bio used to be the typical, like, I help so-and-so and so-and-so achieve whatever result in X amount of time, which is great. Yeah. And I still have that here and there. There's about, 3 or 4 days a week where I wake up and I'm like, maybe I should change it to that so people know what I do, So welcome to the mind of a trainer, always thinking about their bio instead of other important things. So for those of you listening, we obsess over little stuff that doesn't matter.
It's funny. It's funny too, because in the mentorship, Jordan talks about all the time. Like, I've heard him mention several times now, like, the bio, it's so funny because the bio, like, people will put like the diet that they're currently eating, like, in their bio. And so anyways, I think it's pretty telling, like, what really matters to a person. And it's Instagram, right? It's social media. It is what it is. And I'm not trying to put more like value on social media than we should, but at the same time too, like, this is kind of your business. And so I'm just curious, like, why that's there and why you put that there.
Yeah. So that's there to, for a few different reasons, but first and foremost to say, hey, this is who I am, and being a Christian is the first and most important piece of that. Being a husband does not define me. Being a father does not define me. Being a Christian defines me. And, having that in my bio is a way of saying, like, hey, here is who I am. Here is what is important to me. And here's how you can know a little bit more about me, maybe based on what you do or don't know about Christianity, by just reading a word or two, rather than just saying, I help so-and-so, I'm a trainer. Because at the end of the day, I relate to my clients not because I help certain people, but it's because we relate to each other as people, as I'm sure you experience with your clients as well.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean everybody that comes to work with me is a Christian and they have that in common. But people who are might be more likely to join. And that's more of a tertiary reason that's there. But first and foremost, to have a public display of my faith. I think it would not be God honoring for me to profess faith in private and then keep it in a closet in public. So that's my way of saying, hey, this is what I believe. This is who I am. And it's also there, to be honest with you, to keep me in check. Because every time I say something on social media, respond to a comment, send somebody a DM, that is going to be there. Obviously, I could delete the bio, but that defeats the purpose. That's always going to be there. So it's a way to keep me in check and say, hey, am I representing Christ well? So that's kind of a gauge, and that's why I have that there. But I a little bit like more into that. I became it's one of those stories where it's like I probably became a believer a million times in my life, you know. So I grew up in a Christian home, and I would probably have always said I was a Christian, a follower of Jesus, but I wouldn't say I made it my own until probably about even after college. I would say after college when I really made it my own. So long story shorter, I played baseball most of my life, and that was my identity. Cool. And so when that world crumbled, I lost every bit of who I was, what my purpose was, why on earth I was here. And that was shattering. And at the time, I had people that I had previously connected with in youth group ministries and whatnot to go to talk about this stuff. And I was invited to actually serve in a ministry, which at the time I thought I was not in the right place at all as far as my behaviors and how I was living my life. And they invited me in anyway, which I think was a beautiful example of the gospel. And I was able to experience genuine faith from not just peers, but people older than me as well, which I didn't experience as much growing up in sports. I did in my home, but you know, whatever your parents do is kind of nerdy and not cool. So you just like, so anyway, I came to faith then as a young adult, and I've been a follower of Jesus since. And as time goes on, your convictions grow. You know, what do I stand for? What do I not stand for? And over time, you care less about what the world thinks and more about what God thinks. And so over time, it became one of those things where I was convicted, like, hey, I'm kind of being 1 foot in, 1 foot out here, and being, you know, in the world and of the world, while also saying I'm of Christ. It's like, that's not how that works. Scripture tells us one or the other. So it was my way of being like, hey, this is it. This is what I stand for. And of course, I'm going to slip. I'm going to have setbacks. I'm going to have sin, and I'm going to give in to sin. But like, that's why the gospel is always there. So long story short, that's my way of saying, hey, this is who I am. And this is my way of calling myself out to live and act according to those beliefs.
Yeah, man, I love that so much. Thank you. I mean, I ask, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I also am a Christian, and I 100% support everything you said, man. I think it's such a good approach to life. And like, what did you say? You said something about being more like God-centered and giving God the credit for everything that we have, right? I mean, we'll put forth a lot of effort in this life, and we'll do a lot of things in this life, but bottom line is like none of that is possible without God, without our Savior, Jesus Christ. And I love so much, man, that is the first thing in your bio. And I really do appreciate you kind of going into that, because in so many ways, like, that was so relatable. And I know for a fact, like, so many of the people listening will hear what you're saying and will also be able to relate and maybe take something from that. I can't even begin to tell you how many times in my life, you know, like even growing up, you talked about how I grew up in a home that, you know, Christ was the focus and the center. And it was like, yep. Like I go to church on Sunday, I do all the things that I'm supposed to do. But until like my faith was actually tested, you know, it wasn't mine. It was just what I did. And so I feel, man, just like super grateful for you sharing that today. And again, I mean, I think I kind of mentioned, you know, like if you put it in that order for a specific reason, you know, like Christian, husband, father, and I think you addressed that perfectly as well. It's like you're not defined by being a husband, you're not defined by being a father, but you are defined by being a Christian and a follower of Christ. And man, I love that so much. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, kind of leading into being a husband and a father, I mean, one thing I did want to kind of talk to you about was how you balance that with your health. Because I mean, I know you get this all the time too, and you've got it a lot longer than I have, but it's like, that's one of the biggest struggles that people have, is like, how do I balance my life between work and family and making sure I have time to spend with my family, and going to the gym and stuff is going to take away from that time. Like, how do we balance all of this, dude? Like, how do we live a healthy lifestyle while managing and maintaining a good, healthy relationship with our spouses first and foremost, and then our kids as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was, sitting, I had a feeling we were going to talk about something like this. So I was sitting on it for a couple of days, and I'm like, I know what to say. Obviously, I could think of 1,000 different things to say, but I was trying to think what is going to translate the most and be the most impactful for listeners. Yeah. And I can't say that I have the perfect answer, but I hope what I have to share is somewhat helpful. So bit of a backstory for me, this was a bit of a smack in the face as far as balancing these things, because it's not at all what I thought it was going to look like. So my wife, she's a PA, an orthopedic PA, and so she has very, very long days, and we weren't sure at the time if we wanted her to be the primary caretaker, if she was going to continue working, what that whole thing was going to look like. So for the first, well, if you take out maternity leave, I guess the second 3 months of Layla's life, our daughter's life, I've been the primary caretaker, like stay-at-home dad, and trying to run a business and manage all those things and work out. So it's a lot different than what I thought it was going to look like. But I've been thrown into the trenches, and thankfully have been able to learn a lot. I would say, compared to other dads who are usually not at home. Yeah. So, the first thing that I thought of was we really need to figure out like what prioritize means. And I think we've lost touch with that over the years. I think we've told ourselves that we can prioritize tons of different things at the same time, or we have many different priorities. We hear that all the time. What are your priorities? Yeah. That's not really how that works. Like, so I think if there's anybody that's Dutch on here, I'm pretty sure like the original word prioritize for the Dutch means like prioritime, like that's the way it's translated. So it's like how you prioritize your time, and it's a one thing, it's singular. So I think it's going to be really hard for us to say, okay, in order for us to prioritize our fitness, it needs to be the number one thing, because most of us would lay our lives down for our kids and our wives, but we're probably not going to lay our lives down to get that workout in. So maybe it's not fair to say, okay, fitness needs to be the number one priority. So my second thought is maybe it's less about figuring out how to prioritize fitness and really more about figuring out how to cut out the crap that gets in the way, that we deem as priorities that really aren't, that are time wasters, or at best things that have a margin, a fraction of the benefit that being healthier, leaner, stronger, and fitter would. So that to me is the most impactful thing. And it's an exercise. There's an exercise I like to have my clients go through, and it's just a basic time audit. And I got it from the book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. If you have not read that book, listeners have not read that book, like please read that book, The One Thing. It changed my life. But it's just all about really helping you figure out how to focus on one thing at a time and really figure out what truly matters. So what I have my clients do is I have them create a list going from what we would call, different priorities: high priority, medium priority, low priority. Right now, we're just using the word priority because it's part of the exercise, but obviously priority means one thing. But we can say of the most importance, middle importance, low importance. I actually skipped a step. So what you're going to do first is you create a list, high, medium, and low, based on how you spend your time. So like, for example, if you currently scroll for 2 hours a day, that's going to be a high priority item based on how you currently live your life.
Gotcha.
You spend the most amount of time doing that. If you work out for 2 hours a day, but you spend 15 minutes with your kid, you're going to put high in or based on how everything else looks, but you're going to put what did I say? Scrolling or what? Working out.
Yeah, scrolling.
Yeah,
working out and scrolling. Yeah.
So if you work out for 2 hours, that goes in high. You spend 15 minutes with your kid, that goes in low. So you first want to take a look at how you're actually living your life. And in my opinion, both in prioritizing important things in life and actual nutrition and training, the thing that we skip the most often that benefits us the most is the honest conversation with ourselves. So this kind of allows us to take a very objective look at how we behave and how we live and say, oh, shoot, okay, I knew, this was happening, but I didn't realize it was this bad. And I usually have my clients do that in like 15-minute increments, okay, very small increments to really figure out where that time goes. It's a bit tedious at first, but it opens up so much. You open your eyes to a lot. So then what you're going to do from there is you have a new list, and that's your high, medium, and low. And you are going to reorganize what you had in the list based on how you currently live your life, according to how you want to live. So let's say I run into it a lot with moms more so than dads, because they're usually the ones staying at home, but they'll spend like 4 hours a day doing chores because they tell themselves the narrative that if their kids don't have laundry, they're not going to have anything clean to wear, even though, they live in the States where they have 10 million pieces of clothing that they haven't even worn in the last 6 months. It's like, hey, that kid doesn't need laundry, and they can wear the same thing twice in a row. It's not a big deal unless there's pee on it. Other than that, like, they're good to go. So that needs to go to low rather than high. So that's what you would do, is you would say, okay, I spend 2 hours a day scrolling. How much benefit does scrolling have on my life? None. So we're going to go and put that in the low. I spend, let's say 15 minutes a day working out. Have I noticed the ramifications of that? Yes. So that's going to go in medium or high. And so boom, we put that in medium or high. Now you have this new list of what you want life to look like. Now, of course, it's not going to change overnight, but from there, you need to actually time block this stuff out. And this is where people really lose sight of things. They expect themselves to live a completely different lifestyle without slowly practicing on the habit of living that lifestyle. And the only way you can force that habit is by time blocking certain things, because your brain isn't automatically going to want to do it. Same thing when you brush your teeth. Someone has to keep reminding you and reminding you and reminding you as you're growing up. And then now as an adult, you just brush your teeth because frankly, it would just be weird if you went to bed without brushing your teeth, even if they don't feel gritty or disgusting. You're like, this is weird. This is what I normally do. So you would time block it by your highest to lowest, quote unquote, priority. Well, ideally, you're time blocking your high and your medium, but you're not even touching the low. The low happens if you're like sitting on the couch with nothing better to do because you've completed all your high and low tasks. So if you want to spend time with your kid a lot more, you would put that, like actually time block it. So for a lot of the dads listening, like if you're at work and you get home at 5 and you have dinner with your family then, and you have this 30-minute block that you want to cherish, you better freaking time block that thing. And from 6 to 6:30, right before they get ready for bed or whatever that looks like. And that's when you spend time with them. And then over time, you can expand that if you want to. But first, we got to get in the habit of actually doing it, because then your brain is going to be set on this rhythm, expecting certain things and expecting certain habits. And then it's going to just kind of follow suit over time, and it's going to be more automatic. You're going to get to a point where you're spending time with your kids more, quality time, where you're working out more, where it feels just weird if you came home without getting that workout in. Whereas right now, it might be like, oh, sweet, this is the first workout I've had in 3 weeks. And it just happened because we were free on a Sunday for 3 hours. And my wife was cool with watching the kids while I worked out. Like that might be where you are now. We got to get you to the spot where it's just automatic, and you need that schedule and that time blocking to do that. So that's one of the ways that I recommend people slowly start prioritizing those things a little bit more. But it really comes down to getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter, because ultimately that's going to be the greatest bottleneck, rather than doing more of the right things. You just got to do less of the wrong stuff that doesn't align with who you want to be. It's 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah. And it's so good. And it's funny because this morning I was actually reading, I don't know if you ever read the book Indistractable, but that's exactly what it was talking about today, was relationships specifically. But I mean that practice of actually scheduling things into your day, like into your week. If you don't do that, then those things will slip, right? They're not going to happen. And so I love that, man, because so often, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong for saying this, but it feels like we have no time in our day, right? Like it just feels that way because there's just so much that's going on. I mean, I get clients who talk to me about their schedules and stuff. I'm like, dang, man, like that is a busy schedule, so what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to prioritize this, and how are we going to make this happen? And it's funny though, because every time we do kind of take a step back and look for those opportunities, it's always doable. It's always possible. And I think too, I mean, I'm curious to kind of get your take on this, but I think too that oftentimes the reason why somebody isn't getting to the gym, we'll use getting to the gym and when working out as the example here, but somebody isn't getting to the gym and working out is because they think that if they can't go 5 times a week, then what's the point of going, right? And I know this is something I've seen you post a ton about, and so I would love to kind of turn it over to you and let you kind of take it from here. But I think that there's just so many misconceptions I think that people have that make this whole shortage of time feel even more real to them. It's like, man, I can't get to the gym 5 times this week, so like, what's the point? And I mean, that's a mentality in and of itself too that I think we could probably talk about for a long time as well, because I mean, when you apply that to nutrition and all sorts of things, right? It's like, oh, well, I ate a Snickers bar today, so I'm just not going to worry about tracking my food the rest of the day, or I'm not going to worry about what I'm eating the rest of the day, right? It's just like the all or nothing mindset. So anyways, kind of going back to what I said though, like what would be your recommendations to somebody who feels like if they can't get to the gym 5 times a week, like then what's the point of going?
Yeah. Tons of different recommendations, but I think honestly, well, first what I want to say is I get it. You and I both get this. We were talking about this right before we hit record, of like how we both need to be more consistent with our podcasting, because it used to be one of those things for me where I'm like, well, I started out with 3 days a week. I was cranking. And then I'm like, well, if I can't get 3 days a week, what's the point? I might as well wait until the next week where I can record 3. So it's like, I do this too. So it's not a matter of always not doing it. It's a matter of just catching yourself when you are and saying, okay, I need to course correct. I think the first thing I would say is, to be honest with you, how far are you getting by doing this whole, I'm not going to work out if I can't work out 5 days a week? Right. You're overweight. You got the dad bod. You hate the way you look and feel. You don't like taking your shirt off in the summer. You're gasping for air when you play 2 minutes of soccer with your kids. Like, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but how well is that working out? It's not working. So we might as well do something different. And there's always going to be time to do more workouts. Right now, getting a 30% return on 2 workouts a week is going to be far better than getting a 0 or 10% return on doing 5 days a week once every 6 weeks. So we need to just accept the fact that this is the way things are, and then improve and slowly build from there. And I think ultimately this also comes down to another honest conversation that we need to have with ourselves. We often fall into this trap of like, it needs to be 5 days a week, or it can't be anything else, because we have this idea that prioritizing our workouts and prioritizing fitness only has one look or one structure, and that's either 5 days a week or nothing. But that priority, or the way in which you manage that, is going to change based on seasons, right? So you might have a season or a goal that is more demanding. So let's say you've been telling yourself like, hey, I have this goal to build this much muscle in this amount of time. You very well might need 5 days a week to make that happen. So you either need to figure it out and adjust other things that are getting in the way of that goal, or you need to just have an honest conversation with yourself and say, oh shoot, I'm actually not willing to do what it takes to hit that goal in time. And that's okay. Because until you have that honest conversation, you're going to keep trying to do this whole 5 days a week working out or not. You need to say, oh, maybe I'm not willing to actually do that. But what I am willing to do is, let's say, build a certain amount of muscle or lose a certain amount of body fat in 6 months. And that would require 2 days a week in the gym and X amount of steps every day, which I can do, and spend quality time with my family at the same time, because we're all going to go on a walk together. And next thing you know, you start feeling like this is more realistic. You get more excited about it. That's what you need to go with. People constantly fight this like tension that they don't even know they have, because they're trying to pursue a goal that they actually don't even really care about, or just aren't willing to follow through on. And that's why they end up being in this situation. So I think having that objective, honest conversation with yourself is huge. Am I willing to do XYZ, insert whatever it's supposed to take to get to this goal by this certain time frame? Yes or no. There's no like, maybe. It's just yes or no. And if it's no, cool, let's find a different one. And if it's yes, then great. You need to figure out what is less important to you and what's getting in the way of that, so you can go to the gym 5 days a week. The next thing I would say too is like, this is hard for a lot of guys, I've noticed, especially if you are an ex-athlete, used to play sports in college, maybe even in high school, and you have this balls to the wall mentality. There is an insane amount of benefit and results that you can get from actually doing less work. So one thing that you can do is look at the benefits of going to the gym less. So one thing I talked to a lot with during my coaching calls with my clients, especially if the individual is struggling with their nutrition, but they're crushing it in the gym multiple times a week, I'm like, hey, you need to work out one less day, because all you've done is tell me that you don't have time to prepare your meals, to focus on your nutrition, but you're working out 5-6 days a week, and you're getting maybe an additional 5% return by having that 5th workout, that 6th workout. So let's just take one workout away, focus on your nutrition. And usually what they find is they're getting pretty much the same benefit as 3 or 4 days a week than they would with 5 or 6 days a week. They're recovering better, they're sleeping better, their social life is better, their nutrition is better. So understanding that you can actually get into incredible shape and have an amazing physique with just 3 or 4 days a week is huge, because it helps you get rid of that false dichotomy that if I'm not doing balls to the wall workouts 5, 6, 7 days a week, I'm not getting results. Mm-hmm. And once you start seeing those wins on less work, it becomes so much more enjoyable. And then another benefit too of doing 3-4 workouts a week is you have availability to shift things around. You know, when you're doing, like, let's say you want to train your muscle groups 2 times a week and you're doing like a typical push pull legs type of routine, you know, you're working out 6 days a week. And if you miss a day, you have to shift everything else, and that throws off pretty much the whole entire phase, because you got to shift every other workout past that point because you have other stuff going on. Whereas if you just have 3 full body workouts or 4 workouts where you're doing, like, I don't know, 2 upper bodies and 2 lower bodies, you can easily move one of them without affecting everything else. And so it's a lot more flexible based on your schedule. So appreciating those benefits is really, really impactful, because at the end of the day, we're doing this because we want results. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, some of us might really enjoy it, like working out, challenging ourselves, putting things in our lives that require discipline, but we're all doing this because we want to look better, we want to live longer, and or we want to feel better. And so if we can experience those benefits with a little bit less work, we're more likely to buy in and then let go of this whole, stupid idea that we have to work out 5 days a week. So
yeah, I think, man, yeah. So much good information and knowledge there. And I think the biggest thing that I have found that people struggle with is actually, like, believing that they can get results on less days in the gym, and so I don't know, man, like I would be like, what would you tell somebody who's like, but if I don't go to the gym more than 5 days, like 5 days a week, it's like, I'm not going to get the results I want. And yeah, and I know you kind of touched on this already, but it's all about the goal, right? But at the same time, I just don't think that in people's minds, like, we're fully understanding the fact that, like, research and science and studies and everything, I mean, experience shows, I mean, I can speak to my own experience too, like, those things all show us that we don't need to be in the gym nearly as often as we think we do. Mm-hmm. And I guess what would be some of the key principles and points, I guess, that we need to focus on in order to make sure that less days in the gym are actually working for us? Because I feel like, I mean, one of the most obvious ones I feel like that I see all the time is, effort, overall intensity and volume and stuff. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things that people really struggle with is, like, you're going to the gym 5 days a week, but you're not really pushing yourself hard enough to make meaningful progress. I mean, so that's one of them. I mean, are there other things that you would say people could focus on going less days a week versus trying to overdo it with 5 days a week and just feling burnout?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the biggest one that I thought of was the intensity of, like, saying, okay, cool, like, hey, you're in, not just showing them that they can actually, how should I phrase this? Basically, what I'm trying to do with these people is I don't want to try to put water on the flame that is their work ethic. Yeah. Like, I am not trying to dampen that at all. I want to take that and just point it towards something else, where it's like, okay, hey, I love the fact that you want to get after it. We just need to redirect how you're getting after it, because you are a limited being, believe it or not. Like, your body is going to feel it. Plus, you're telling me about how you want to work hard, and because of this whole 5 day week thing, you haven't gone in the last 2 weeks. So why are we even having this conversation? But really showing them, like, hey, I want you to work just as hard, but I want you to work hard in these ways 3 or 4 days a week, and actually showing them what that hard work looks like. Because to them, hard work means I'm breathing hard, I'm sweating, I am I'm out of breath, like, I feel I'm leaving that gym like crawling out of it. That's hard work to them. But if I can show them, like, hey, this is how I want you to perform your first set, and based on the effort in that first set, your second set should look like this. You're probably going to do less reps with the same weight. Probably going to do even less reps in the third set. So for them, that gives them this little, like, easy gauge to say, like, oh, am I working hard enough? Right now we have to I have to tell them like, hey, don't psych yourself out by
Yeah.
doing less reps and convincing yourself that it's just a really hard set, which is tricky. That's a different conversation. So having them be able to actually measure that hard work is really, really helpful for them to actually look at it and say, oh, okay, I lifted more last week than I did this week. And this is how I need to base my intensity this workout because of what I did last time. And not only do they have an easy way they can just look at it and that logical side of the brain can understand, but now they actually have that reward because they actually are being told like on the numbers, oh, I am working really hard, as opposed to having to rely on soreness, being out of breath, whatnot. So you kind of like install this reward system in that habit loop, right? Work out hard, measuring my progress this way. I see more progress next week. I see the numbers go up. There's a reward there. Whereas before they would have gotten the reward from maybe feeling sore or feeling beat up or whatever. So that's a big one there. That usually works like 99% of the time. So I haven't had to think of too many things beyond that. I would say one other thing is, if this is someone who truly is getting in the gym 5 days a week, most weeks, and they don't have an issue with the all or nothing mentality, what I would usually, but like maybe they're struggling to get results, I would have them just still go to the gym. But it's like, hey, you're just going to do something different. Maybe today you're not going to be, going balls to the wall with your lower half because you did that 2 days ago and you still need to recover a little bit. So today, let's do some mobility work because you told me that your squats are feeling uncomfortable, or we're going to do some sort of upper body explosive work because your legs aren't really ready for that right now. Just something because they enjoy the habit of going to the gym. I would keep that there instead of saying, hey, don't go at all if they're really insistent on wanting to go. Plus, if that's the case, they're going to be there less. And if they really want to spend time with their family or do other things or pursue their career or whatever, they have more time to do that with those shorter workouts, even if they are going 5 days a week.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. One of the things that I feel like I've had to kind of prioritize myself is like a little bit of cardio, like I think that's a great one to do in between like upper and lower days or in between. I mean, I do a 4-day split, upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, cardio, upper, lower, cardio. And so, like you said, mobility, cardio, something that's just a little bit different, still giving your body maybe a little bit of a rest and recovery. But getting to the gym because, I mean, I relate to what you've been talking about so much. I mean, it sounds like you played college baseball.
Yep. Yeah. I
Awesome. Where did you play at?
North Dakota State. Go Bison.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. Go Bison.
They're freezing cold.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And they have a good football program too, right?
Really good football program.
Yeah. I was going to say they're always in the championship.
Yeah. We're in the glory days back then. Still are, but it was a lot of fun to watch them play.
Awesome. Dude. Well, I played baseball at a junior college too, just in Eastern Utah. But yeah, man, I think that is such a good point that I've never really thought about is like the habits that we've built, from playing sports and stuff in high school to potentially college, how those things can have an effect and carry over into like the mindset of our fitness and our nutrition and stuff like that. Because I mean, I can reflect on my experience personally over the last like 13 years. And there's definitely been those moments where it's like 6 days a week in the gym, lifting hard. And it's funny because I reflect on those times now and I look at pictures of those times now. And I'm like, I was just as skinny and as small as I, was when I was in high school almost. But until I finally understood and grasped the concept of like less days in the gym with a little bit more intensity and some extra rest and recovery, that's truly when progress started to be made. Like when I really, truly started to see changes in my physique. And so, I mean, I don't know if you have any personal experiences like that for yourself as well. I would love to hear some of your personal experiences and stories as well around that. But it's so interesting to me, man, how it just takes a little bit of awareness and a little bit of, I mean, I have a coach myself currently. And the other day I told him, I'm like, dude, I'm realizing more and more I have an ego. Like I have a freaking ego, especially when I'm in the gym. Like I can't not, like load up the squat bar with as many plates as I can because I have an ego and I'm like, I want to hit this. And truth be told, I want everybody around me to see how freaking strong I am. It's like all of these things, dude, it plays into it. And so anyways, I would be curious to hear how you kind of overcome some of those feelings and beliefs yourself as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are a ton of different ways. And going back to what you were originally asking about the 5 day a week, all or nothing thing, I think one thing that could potentially help is letting go, if you have the flexibility in your schedule, is letting go of the week time frame. So this kind of ties in with this current question that you just asked. Like, during one of the best training programs I've ever run myself was doing like it's not the perfect way to describe it, but basically it was a full body push day. Basically, think of the front side of your body for people listening, and then the back side of your body. So I would have front side of the body, back side of the body, off, front side of the body, back side. So it was just a 3 day rotation. 3 day rotation, 3 day rotation. And this is when I was getting more into the, like, this was a few years ago when more of the research was showing like how the frequency was very important, training muscle groups like, you know, as often as you can while recovering. And so I thought, okay, well, if I did upper, lower, like that's still 2 times a week. But if I did this like 3 day rotation over the span of 90 days, that's a lot more exposure and tension on my muscles. And I know not everybody's in this situation, but thankfully I was in a situation where I could do that. You know, I could just kind of just do that 3 day rotation. And I thought to myself, okay, I can't be sore if I'm going to do this. So I'm going to try to do less sets. And at the time it was like, less sets, like instead of 4 sets, I'm going to do 2 or maybe, you know, 3 on, if I really wanted to increase some sort of muscle group. It was like, that's going to be tough. But I kid you not, it was the most amount of muscle I have ever built on any training program. And that program was way shorter than a lot of other programs that I've run. And so having that like firsthand, and I was getting DEXA scans done too, because I was really curious. I was like, I really want to see how this can change. And I was getting DEXA scans done. And it was like 12 pounds of lean mass over the course of like 6 months, I'd been training for 10 years plus at this point. Now, granted, I was more dialed with my nutrition and sleep and other things that I was trying to, you know, follow through on. I need to double check that because I think I was at 12% body fat, 8 pounds of lean mass gained, I think is what it was. Regardless, that's still pretty crazy for someone.
Insane, dude. Holy cow.
Someone who's been training a while. So, letting go of that week mentality as far as like the calendar week can help a ton as well, because then you're not keeping track of how many times did I get it done the last week. You're just keeping track of like, when is the next session, right? I did this session, I did that session, took a day off. Now here's the next one. And even if it's a 3 day rotation and you're doing, you know, full body push, full body pull off, and let's say you do a poor job of getting to the gym the next day off, you just started the rotation again. Who cares? Like, it's the next day you start the rotation. So that can help a ton if you have that availability, and you don't need to have set, you know, days where it's like Monday I go to the gym, Wednesday I go to the gym. If you don't need to do that, that's a great way to approach that. So that's one way I was able to really get over that, because I was able to see there were some exercises where I was only doing 2 sets. And at first it's like, this is stupid. There's no way this is going to work. And I was able to, and my strength went up a ton too. So I was able to grow there. And that helped me get over that mindset a lot. Injuries will also do a number on you. So there was a stint last year, probably like last year and the year before that, where it was like injury, not crazy major, but like injury after injury after injury after injury. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, I have nobody to blame but myself, because every time I got to like 80% recovered, there's always that moment in the gym. And I'm sure you know this. There's that moment in the gym where it's like, this is all I was supposed to do today, and I'm feeling really good. Like, maybe we should do one more set. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you?
Dude, it just happened to me yesterday. Like, literally yesterday.
Yeah, so you're like, let's just load up one more. And then you load up that one more, boom. Then you feel that same tweak in your back. And I'm like, gosh, dang it. So, you know, I think being, 31 also helps as opposed to 22. I think being 22, I'd still keep going because your frontal lobe isn't quite there. But eventually I got sick of continuing to injure myself and realized, okay, this is not helping. So I got to put my ego aside there. That was one thing that helped as well. And I think like objectively, so because we're not always like, we have a logical part of our brain, right? But we really operate off of emotion and feeling a lot, especially when it's not in check. Yeah. And this is a huge reason why people who are wanting to push hard, ex-athletes, whatever it is, have a hard time letting go of that, because they're associating that subjective feeling of exhaustion, pushing themselves, feeling like they just got a taxing workout in, with the objective measure of improvement. They're getting those two confused. Yeah. So it's helpful, in my opinion, to let go of that subjective feeling and actually have something objective to look at. So in the inverse as well. So like writing down what you've been doing and actually see, oh, I haven't gained any strength in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Or like tracking your food. Oh, I've actually been eating 3,000 calories instead of 2,200. Being able to see how you're like objectively how you're sabotaging yourself is very helpful, because anybody who wants to improve their performance, their physique, whatever, isn't going to like seeing that. And it might take you seeing that to flip the script and say, okay, something else needs to happen. How many times do we see this come up with finances, right? Like my wife and I took the financial peace class before we got married, and they require you to run a budget at the beginning. And everybody, there's so many couples in this thing, and everybody runs a budget and they're like, what? This is what I've been doing for the last X amount of years of my life. This is how much debt I'm in. They just have no clue because they don't write anything down. Yeah. But then same thing with your workouts. Start doing that, because you might see like, oh, I thought my squat was getting stronger, but really it's only gone up 10 pounds in the last year and a half. Then you might be able to say, okay, something needs to change. So those are a few different things that I usually recommend. And those are some things that have helped me dramatically as well. Once I started keeping track of my food, which was a very big turning point in my training and nutrition. And then once I started keeping track of my workouts, those were two very eye-opening events for me in my life.
Yeah. And I know we've talked a lot about fitness today, but man, nutrition, that's probably a whole nother conversation, Adam. Maybe I'll have to have you back for at some point, because it just kind of went this way. I don't know, like we kind of took fitness as an example from the beginning and just kind of ran with it. But yeah, I just appreciate so much like your ability to kind of portray these things and explain these things to everybody listening. And even for myself too, it's really cool to sit here, listen to what you're saying, and kind of think through in my own experience, how I've seen those things play a role. Because I mean, as you said, it's like, I mean, I've been actively pursuing like my health and like my fitness and stuff for like 13 years. I've been coaching for 2 years now. And there is an insane amount of stuff that I feel like I still need to learn. I'm super grateful for like all of my clients and stuff who have entrusted me, with helping them improve their health and stuff. And I feel grateful that I do have some of that knowledge. But man, like every time I talk to somebody like you, or, do a little bit of like studying and stuff and realize, how much more there is that could be playing a role and that could be affecting things, like, it's like, man, we're just scratching the surface. And that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing, because if we knew it all, then what, like, what's the point? Exactly. And so I think that's a life lesson for sure. Right. If we knew everything, then what would be the point of being here? So anyways, man, I really do appreciate you coming on. I want to kind of wrap up with one last question, and you've probably mentioned a lot of things, and so maybe we'll kind of summarize with this question. But I mean, for somebody who is just like struggling to get back into, or maybe they're not getting back into it. Maybe they've never lived a healthy lifestyle. Like maybe it's something they've always wanted to do, but never have been able to. Like, what would be your advice to somebody who's looking to either get back or get started on prioritizing? We're going to use that key phrase that we've used already today, prioritizing their health.
So I think too often with this question, we focus on tactics, and tactics matter, right? Strategy matters. I'm a very big strategy guy, because energy and motivation comes from clarity and next steps. If you don't have clarity, you don't have next steps, nothing's going to happen. But what drives us to behave on that clarity and those next steps is mindset. I'm a huge mindset person, and maybe we can get into it later, but like I experienced some major negative effects of mindset when I was in baseball, which is part of the reason I lost half my scholarship the first year, the other half of the scholarship the second year. Baseball was done, over. So I realized like how much of an impact how you think about yourself and your performance is going to have on the actions that you take. So instead of focusing on tactics like, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z, well, I guess this is still something that you should do, but it's more of a thought and mindset exercise. And I was taught this when I was a housekeeper, which is a fancy term for a janitor at my first gym. The team housekeeper. It's like, we're just janitors. Just call us janitors, man.
I was thinking like Harry Potter or something. I don't know why my mind went to Harry Potter. I was like, housekeeper. Is that like?
Dude, that'd be way cool, as long as I wasn't like Fitch with the cat and everything. Filch.
Oh, that's Filch. That's why I thought that though, because he is the housekeeper, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
No, he
anyways,
is. Yeah.
that's funny.
No, that's so funny. My wife would be so proud of me right now. I was not a fan of Harry Potter until we got married, and now I'm like the biggest Harry Potter nerd ever. But not ever. But anyway, so they taught us this exercise in our culture training, and it's called I don't know what the name of it is, but I call it be, do, have. So we have two different mindsets, and there's one of a victor who's in control, one of a victim who believes that they are they go with the wind based on how life happens to them. They're a victim of their circumstances. And that mentality comes from a have, do, be mindset. So what do I need to have in order to do what I want to do, to be who I want to be? So for example, a lot of people will be like, okay, I want to be fitter, leaner, I want to lose 30 pounds, whatever. I need to have more free time to be able to do that. So now what's going to happen is you're not going to take any action until this perfect free time genie shows up and grants your wish. Or I need to have more money so I can go to the fancier gym and have that gym membership or hire that coach before I can XYZ. So now what's going to happen is you're not going to do anything until you have that money. So that's the have, do, be mentality. That's the mindset of a victim, right? We want to flip that and say, be, do, have. Who do I need to be in order to do the things that I need to do to have what I want to have? So if I want to have 10 pounds of fat loss, who do I need to be? What kind of person would do what is required to achieve that? Well, the kind of person that probably takes a walk for 15 minutes, 30 minutes after dinner every single night. Probably a person who doesn't have that third drink every Friday and Saturday that I'm out. Probably the person who you can fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
And you need to begin telling yourself that you are on the path to becoming that person. It's not delusion, right? You're not telling yourself, well, I'm just going to behave like a ripped person who prioritizes fitness all the time because I am, even though you're 50 pounds overweight. Like that's delusion. You're just lying to yourself. But you need to begin envisioning yourself living as if you are that person. And then you will, right? You need to say, who is the 2.0 version of me right now? Who do I need to be to do what I need to do to have what I want to have? Figure out that piece first. And then the actual actions, which are very, very simple, not always easy, but simple. Just walk a little bit more, maybe 2 full body workouts for 30 minutes, which if you're not doing anything now, you're going to be shocked the results that you get doing that. Maybe it's just 1 extra workout if you're doing 2, to have what I want to have, build the muscle, lose the body fat, finally feel good when I'm taking my shirt off, be able to enjoy intimacy with my spouse again, whatever it is. So that's the mentality that I would recommend people or the exercise that I would recommend people go through, because thoughts become things. And if your thoughts aren't in check, usually things aren't going to work out too well for you.
Yeah, man, I heard a quote yesterday that was really in line with that. Like, you can literally shape the world, into like what you want it to be. Like you have that power mentally. And once you convince yourself of that and like exercise that ability, man, like the world is yours, right? Like the possibilities are endless. And so I love that. That's such a good exercise too, Adam. There's so many little things like that, a few different strategies and like opportunities that you've mentioned today that we have as individuals to sit and reflect on, ourselves, like think through things within ourselves and in our lives. I think that is something that people do not do enough. We do not sit in our thoughts. We do not think enough because there is so much always fighting for our attention.
Yes.
Both good and maybe negative things like, anyways, like social media is one thing, but I mean, even on the flip side, like even the best things in this world, like our family, they oftentimes can, get in the way of us, like being able to process things and grow within ourselves by sitting in our thoughts and thinking things through. So that's something that, I'm making a huge note of today is I'm going to schedule time for me to sit in my thoughts and to think through things a little bit more instead of just flying by the seat of my pants all the time.
Can I speak into that a little bit?
Absolutely. Please.
End, but we see that in scripture, right? Jesus went away. Yeah. Jesus went away. Jesus went away. Jesus went away. Like that dude didn't have the distractions that we do. And he still was like, man, I need to get away to be with the Father. And we have 1,000,001 more distractions that are far more enticing than whatever he had going on at the time. Yeah. And going back to that book I recommended of the one thing, that can be chunked down to not just huge priorities in life, like quality time with family, working out, career, but also the tiny things. And so if you're listening and you're feeling busy, like if you've told somebody when they ask how you're doing and you say busy, one, stop doing that. Tell them how you're actually doing, even if it's bad. Two, we need to stop feeling that way. And part of the reason we feel that way is because for us, especially in the West, we think that we are superheroes and that we can do a million things at once. And every piece of research shows that we are horrible at it. Absolutely horrible. Everybody's like, oh, I can put that background show on. I'm gonna put The Office on, and then I'm gonna do my homework at the same time. You suck at both. I hate to break it to you, you suck at both. You think you're good, but you're actually spending more time and you're doing less effective work. But anyway, like the smallest things. So it's like, just do one thing. If you are driving, just drive. No podcast, no music, no consumption, just drive. If you are cooking dinner with your family, there's no like putting a TV on the background, maybe not even music in the background. There's no checking your email, just cook with your family. Like I was feeding my daughter right before this and my phone was right next to me. And sometimes she doesn't look at me. She's just kind of chilling, feeding, and feels boring because my brain's addicted to, social media, whatever. And so I'm like, well, I just want to grab my phone. I'm like, no, do one thing. And so now it's like, I felt like I really got to connect with her just staring at her. Right. And we often feel we're missing out on these things in life because, like you said, Luke, we're not present when the thing is actually going on. We're trying to balance two different things at the exact same time. And our brain is literally incapable of doing that. Our brain can have one thing going on and then deprioritize a second, but it can't do both at the same extent for the same period of time. So I love that. Be present, get away, have solitude time, because you need to train your brain to be okay with that. The reason that it's hard to do that now is because your brain is addicted to a million things at once, and it's going to take time. But like, yeah, get away. That's one way I do it, is I drive and I try to turn the podcast and music off and just be. And that's okay if your thoughts run. So yeah, do that, train yourself, and then just start practicing one thing at a time. You're not checking email and Facebook, just email. Then after that, Facebook. Then after that, call so-and-so, instead of three things at once. And I think over time, you're going to feel a lot more peace, and you're going to feel like maybe life isn't as busy as you thought. And then maybe, oh shoot, being able to work on my fitness and nutrition just became a lot more realistic.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I love that. And it's funny how many times, like, have you read those verses of scripture that Jesus went away? And I've never once thought that to myself. Like, he's literally going away to be in his thoughts, to connect with the Father. And like, man, so insightful, Adam. Thank you so much, man, for your time today. And I don't know, I hope I'm not overstepping here, but I would love to have you back on at some point. So
not at all. I would love that. That pumps me up. Good, man. We got a lot more to talk about. So appreciate you, man. Really do appreciate you being here. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Please, share the podcast with other people that you think might benefit from it. Please leave a review. Whatever you can do to kind of build the engagement with the podcast, it's only going to help more people get the message that Adam and I talked about today. So please do that. So thank you again, guys, for listening. Adam, have a great one. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Later.